I'm Akash, and this is your News of the Week for the week of November 6th to November 13th, 2021. I'm Akash Cody, and let's get right to the headlines. Of course, we begin with the fact that COP26, the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, is currently ongoing. So, we've covered all that you need to know about COP26. As well as that, we also have the fact that the company Johnson & Johnson, the pharmaceutical giant which actually created the Johnson & Johnson vaccine for COVID-19, is actually splitting into two parts. Johnson & Johnson! Just kidding, no, but it is very interesting and I'm going to be covering it this week. Now, before we dive into further details, a quick interesting story for this week, which is actually the fact that there is not much major news this week. Yeah, really. It is a little annoying that there isn't all too much news this week, but to be honest, it is kind of good in a way, because no news is always better than bad news. So, with that in mind, let's begin today's News of the Week with COP26. So you might have heard of the COP26, the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference, starting October 31st until today, November 13th, in Glasgow in the United Kingdom. So you might have been interested about what's going on in COP26, but found it very complicated. So I've covered everything that you need to know about COP26 this year. Now, COP stands for Conference of the Parties, and the parties are the 197 countries who are in attendance for the COPs. Now, COPs is actually a way to show that we're evolving with climate, and so we have to do what we can to protect our planet and to preserve the planet that we live on and protect our next generation. So for that, we have the United Nations Climate Change Conference, otherwise known as UNCCC, or COP for short. Now, the parties are to the United Nations Framework for a Convention on Climate Change, which was signed all the way back in the 1990s. So the very first ever COP took place in 1995. Now, ever since then, there have been two very important COPs. The first one was COP3 in 1997, which was held in Kyoto, Japan. And this is where the famed Kyoto Protocol for Climate Change was signed. Now, China and the United States, which are the two largest greenhouse gas emitters in the world, both did not sign the Kyoto Protocol. And so things began to crumble rapidly, which means that starting 2011's COP, there were new plans and proposals for another agreement to supersede the Kyoto Protocol. So in 2015, COP21 took place, and COP21 was actually held in Paris, France. This is where the well-known Paris Climate Agreement was signed, that you may have heard of. So, the Paris Climate Agreement, America originally signed it under President Obama, but later, when President Trump became the president, he decided to withdraw America out of the Paris Agreement. But when President Biden became the president, he decided to rejoin America into the Paris Climate Agreement, and so America attends COP26 today and the past 2 weeks. Now, for the past 2 weeks, we've seen various new improvements going on about in COP26 in Glasgow, Scotland, in the United Kingdom. Now, in Glasgow, there have been new agreements by 197 parties from all the countries of the world, worldwide, and the major agreement is that they all plan to cut 30% of methane emissions and to end all deforestation worldwide by 2030, the end of the decade. So we hope to see how the countries are going to be handling this. And so as COP26 goes on, and yes, it was actually supposed to end yesterday, but it's gone into overtime as is with most of the COPs in recent years, as they have all gone over time because of the very lengthy agreement approval process. Now, as things are going on, we have the fact that we have 22 of the countries who are attending COP26. Most of these countries are very large producers out of these 22 of the greenhouse gases. So out of these 22 main emitters of greenhouse gases, 3 are very important: China, the United States, and India, which are the 3 largest worldwide. So, as it turns out, both the United States and India attended the event, but China, the world's largest producer of greenhouse gases, did not, which is very peculiar, but we'll have to see what goes on with China and the COP26. Now, this is currently what's going on at COP26, and I truly hope that major changes will be made this year so that we can protect the next generation and so that we can preserve the planet that we live on, Earth. Now, this is what's been going on at COP26 this year, the 26th United Nations Climate Change Conference. So let's take a look at our next story of the week, which is the fact that Johnson & Johnson is one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world, which is based in New Jersey in the United States. So, as it turns out, this company, which you know probably for creating brands like Band-Aid, Listerine, and Neutrogena, and also for their over-the-counter prescription drugs, and also more recently for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, this company is actually planning to split into 2 different companies, Johnson and Johnson! Hooray! Now, of course, they're not going to be named Johnson & Johnson. That would be wildly confusing, but then again, it is a little similar to this. So the plan for Johnson & Johnson is that we're going to have 2 parts. One of them is the consumer brands, who's going to be focusing on Band-Aid, Listerine, Neutrogena, and all the brands like it. So this is going to be a different company, while the original Johnson & Johnson will, focus more on the pharmaceutical section, which means over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs, and of course the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Now, this is what's going on with Johnson & Johnson right now, as the company is going to be splitting in 2. We don't know what they're going to be naming each part yet, but we're pretty sure that the pharmaceutical section will retain the name Johnson & Johnson, while the spin-off, which will contain the consumer brands, will have to be named something else. So, although I wish the companies would have been named Johnson & Johnson, that would have been absolutely wonderful. Sadly, that's probably not going to be the case. But this is going to be what's going on with Johnson & Johnson, and it's going to be pretty exciting. So, that is all of your news of the week for the week of November 6th to November 13th, 2021. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you soon in another News of the Week. Goodbye.